This will give you a quick overview of JobSiteForecast. When a user signs in, this will be the screen that they hit to start with, which is a summary of all the jobs. And you can see there's a number of columns across here, and you can scroll to see them all. And columns can be turned off and on at will. For instance, you may want to add the cost center column to the screen. You can modify the organization of the columns, the width of the columns, and get the view set up just the way you want it. One of the things that you may want to do is pin the column on the left here, so I can pin that column left just so it doesn't scroll away on me when I scroll my screen. Once I get everything set the way I want it, I can then save that and then give that a view. So I'm just going to call it my view. And I can make it public. I can make it the default for everybody when they sign in. In this case, I'm just going to make it my own personal view. Okay. So next, what we want to be able to do is analyze some of the data that we have on here. So for instance, we may want to organize and look at this list of projects by project manager. So we can find project manager on the list here, drag it down to the grouping area here, and then now the data is grouped by project manager, and I can put this inside the pin here if I want. So now I can look at each individual project manager, and you can see it rolls up all their projects in a summary line. So I can do this with any kind of data, and I have a few set up here. So I could do it by state, for instance. So now I have it all grouped by state. And then I can do it by cost center, for instance, or just go back to my default all jobs view. You'll also notice that we've got a week ending date over here, so I can go back and look at the data that was in place in the previous week or the week before that, and I can scroll back here for as many weeks as we have data, or back to the current week. Any of this data can also be exported to Excel. If you want to do that, you hit the Download Excel button here, and it will download a copy of whatever organization you have on the screen at the time. Now we may want to drill into a specific job. So in this case, we'll pick job 1500 here and click on the job, and now we have a complete list of all the phase codes for the entire job. Now, I may be one of the field supervisors, so I don't want to see all of the different trades that are on this job, so I may want to filter this out and just pick mechanical field, for instance. Then once I do that, I can save that as my current view for the job. And now each time I come in here, I'm only going to be looking at the mechanical field work. The summary at the bottom, too, is only for whatever filter you've applied. So this is the overall performance for the job for the mechanical field work. Now, since I'm in here trying to do updates, I may want to grab the hours this period column that I see here. So let's just unpin that column to start with. And I may want to drag that column over here so I can see it beside my percent complete, and then save that as my current view. So now I can go in and enter any of the performance information or completion information that I have on my job. And then once I'm done making all those entries, I save it, and now those are saved back to the database. Now the next area we may want to look at is the schedule on the job. So I can go into the schedule on the job now, and now I am going to see the entire list of phase codes for the job, all in a scheduling format. And this scrolls across. I may want to zoom on it a little bit so I can see more of the project, or push it up to my full screen so I can see it. Now with the scheduling system, you can do most things that you can do with Microsoft Project. So you can see I've got delays or lags that I can add on to the phase codes. And you can also drop and drag all of these connectors to one another to get whatever logic you want set up. You can also view the critical path on the project. You can also look at the baseline of the project, where it was originally scheduled and where it's scheduled today. You could also look at weekends. If we zoom back into the daily view, now we can see the weekends. You'll also notice that the schedule includes at the bottom here a list of all of the work groups, and the labor loading by work group you can display it either in hours or in man days. And then that tells us how many people we need each day or each week to perform this project. Each project also has a calendar associated with it, so you can set up various types of calendars and then assign a calendar to a project, and then it'll do the labor calculations based on the particular calendar you have set up. You can also do that as well at an individual phase code level. So if you turn the calendar on for a particular phase code, you can, for instance, change the calendar to overtime on Saturday, but just for this particular phase code. And then you will, if you switch to the weekend view, now you'll see that there's labor on Saturday and it's specifically tied to that particular phase code. By clicking on the 6-week look ahead, you can then see the planning sheet for the field supervisor. And I've got it sorted by a scheduled start date. These dates are all coming off the project schedule, the Gantt chart. And this allows me to go in and do some short-term planning. So the idea here is, how many people am I going to put on this particular task? So sheet metal main level 2, I may decide that I want to put 3 people on that task. And now it immediately tries to estimate when I would be finished with that kind of manpower loading and whether I'm ahead or behind schedule. This data then moves into a weekly work plan, where then you can see what came in from the 6-week plan. So we can scroll down to find that one element we did. It defaults Monday to Friday. You can manipulate any of that, so you can decide that you want 2 people for the last 2 days in the week, or Friday's a holiday. And then you set some goal here. So you may want to say that you're trying to do section A of this corridor this week, and it's crew number 2 that's working on it. And then at the end of the week, you can say whether you achieved it or you didn't achieve it. If you didn't, why you didn't. There's some flood, for instance, and then you can put that in a category for later analysis. There is also a screen to do your resource planning. This screen rolls up all the resource requirements for all the jobs and presents the data graphically so that you can see what the manpower loading is each month going forward, get an idea of what you need to do with manpower. This screen can also be organized in various ways, filters, sort. So I have a view set up here which just shows me the field. So I've got 2 field trades, sheet metal field and mechanical field, and I can see the manpower loading for each and when I need to be concerned about either trying to get some more work in or I'm going to have to do layoffs. And then in each group you can see the various jobs that are involved that make up that loading, and then you can see each job individual month loading in terms of manpower requirements. We're also comparing the last payroll period, so you can see here we had 3.8 people last payroll period against the scheduled 5.3, so that may affect whether or not you're going to finish that job on time. So you can see all this at a very high level. Any of this data can be exported, or you can also see it in a column chart, and you can view it at a little higher resolution. You can download this graph and email it to someone if you wish. Now this data is rolled up from the individual job. So if I go back to an individual job and look at the resource planning on an individual job, you'll see that I've got an estimated start, estimated finish date here. This is all driven from calendar days after job start and calendar days before job finish. So each work group gets assigned a rough time slot when they're going to start. For instance, we're saying the shop is going to start 60 days after job start. Now the advantage of doing this is now I only have to manage the job start and finish dates. So if the job is shifting forward or is being delayed, I can change these dates and all the individual work groups will calculate by themselves. And these dates are coming from Spectrum. So by maintaining these dates in Spectrum, you'll automatically have an up-to-date resource plan. The next thing we just want to go over quickly is the import-export section of the application. So we can import data. Typically this is done after payroll, and you can either notify or not notify the users. Then you can also export your forecast into Spectrum, either as a CSV file or a direct transfer. And typically a project manager may want to do this for his own jobs. So he can take all his jobs, phase code changes over the last month, and start that export, and that will push the data straight into Spectrum. So that's a quick walkthrough JobSiteForecast where you can see, get an overall view of what capabilities the system has. Okay, thanks.